You are live.
No, we are live.
Yeah, true. We're live. We're live. We just worked out. 0 watchers.
Trying to pull it together.
Yep. Hey, tasting our own medicine.
Yeah.
All right. Well, people are probably not watching. You got 0 watchers because it says CrossFit level 2. Hold on, I'm gonna try pro.
Where's CJ at? What the heck?
Yeah, it's Harley's birthday.
I know.
Shout out, happy birthday, Coach Harley.
Yay.
Coach Harley.
Dang.
It's his birthday.
30. So
30
crazy.
years old. He is old. No one's watching this, so we're talking to ourselves, which takes away some of the anxiety. But those of you guys who watch it later, which is you, talking to you because you're watching it later, we're going to share. We're going to share our screen. Before we get going here, today is the last day. The last day to go to provenactiveapparel.com/shop. Click on shop here. It will take you to the Proven Teams Wodapalooza support tee. You guys can buy that and support those teams going to Wodapalooza. We actually have some athletes on those teams that are a part of Proven Active Apparel. You get an Arsenal mystery box, $75. But more importantly, you could own your very own The Pack 2024 Masters Game tee. Fitness Racing. It's got all our athletes on the back. John LeConte, Cece, Shanna, Haley, Brian, John, Sarah, Sherry, Jen Dieter, and Nancy.
Whoop, whoop.
That's good.
10.
I know, 10 athletes. Okay. You can get one of those shirts.
The golden 10.
Yep. If you don't get the shirt by today, you probably won't get one. If you've already ordered yours, great. I like these, the In the Hunt. These are really cool. If you guys have ever been to Phil's Coffee, it is Phil's Coffee inspired logo on the back. It says Pack Training under here. It looks like the Phil's Coffee logo. In the Hunt. Little wolf in a nice little cold brew coffee color tee. And then you have like the latte style color tee. This one's nice too. I might actually get one. I don't think I got one. I got the coffee in.
Yeah, I got the brown one or the coffee one.
But now I like this. And then Cardio Club in gray and black. These ones are cool. Cardio Club, run fast, stay hefty. So for those of you who are like myself, tall and broad, running like a mofo, it's for you. And then one of my personal favorites, I actually like wearing this shirt all the time. Pack athletes are trash. I wear it. I have 2 of them. I probably wear them once or twice a week. I really enjoy them. So don't miss out. Again, that's activeapparel.com shop. Partner with those guys and girls, ladies also involved in that. Let me see if I can actually put this. I can. So when you're watching this, I will put the link for that in the description of this YouTube. So if you guys are watching it later, check out down below in the description. Should be a link to that. Get them today, July 31st. Window closes. Those of you guys who know. So cool. That was good. Thank you, Proven Active Apparel.
Yeah, that was great.
You guys are crushing it. Happy to partner with them. Going to do more things. If you missed this run, maybe we'll re-release the Fitness Racing shirt down the road. But
probably not. I wouldn't take that chance. I would get it now.
Probably not. Those other tees, I don't know. We'll see. We like them though. And I know a lot of people ordered. So if you missed out, you missed out.
Well, it's almost like the 2022 with that game shirt that I feel like everyone wants to bring back. But
the rocker tee?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's cool. I might bring back the logo without the stuff on the back, but the stuff on the back does actually make the tee. You guys know what that is. We had the rocker tee. You guys kind of see it's with the wolf rocking out with the barbell. It says Pack on the top. And on the back, it has every competition that we had our athletes go to that year. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Including the games and semifinals. We didn't include quarterfinals. We just did like semifinals and the big ones. So pretty neat.
The big one, you mean the CrossFit Games?
CrossFit Games. We had Iron Games on there. Legends, Granite Games. It's a pretty big year because that's the year that Marissa also went to semifinals. So
yeah,
pretty cool. We didn't have a games tee last year, unfortunately. We actually lost our logo designer. So we had a gap in a lot of our stuff, and we had Alicia actually do some things, but now we got our special good friend, Matt, who crushes it.
Yeah.
And he's going to do more fun stuff. He's got something in the works for the fall already. One the cool logo. And then if I can convince him to do other stuff, FYI, for every shirt that we sell that is his logo, and I know this doesn't sound like a lot, and it's really not because he's got a full-time job, but it's cool to do. We give him $1 for every shirt. So like forever and always, if he drew that logo, he'll get $1. So like royalties.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's neat.
Yeah.
He didn't need really any extra money, but we like what he does. And
yeah,
if we start selling a ton of stuff, maybe one day it'll go to $2. That was a joke. That was a joke.
We got to get more watchers on this YouTube channel.
Yeah, we got one. If you are watching, comment in the chat. It's probably Marissa on there. I think the Proven Act apparel did overshadow. I'll say it again, 6 minutes in. Happy birthday, Harley.
Yeah.
Just want to get that again. Everybody who watches this, it's Cody. Nice. Cody's showing us the rocker. Go ahead and wish Harley happy birthday on Instagram, or if you're lucky enough to have his phone number, give him a text, show him some love. It's hard to get old. And yeah, one day you're going to be dead. So get that love.
Wow.
I mean, it's true, right?
That is true.
Okay. So enjoy it while you can. This episode, we're going to talk about CrossFit Level 2. Heather and I just did the CrossFit Level 2.
Again,
for my third time, we just wanted to talk about it, give some insight if anybody was ever wondering. So we'll go through the process real quick. So like if you wanted to start learning about CrossFit, I wouldn't even say coaching CrossFit. Now, historically, yes, you could take a level 1 and then apply to open an affiliate. And it used to be pretty tough actually to open an affiliate. You had to do a whole essay. I actually remember that. I had to do an essay for our first affiliate of like why we wanted to do an affiliate. We had to send in a business plan. Yeah. It wasn't anything like robust. Like when you're talking about like business plans in college, like nothing like that. But it was like, hey, cover letter. This is why we want to do it. Here's what we've been doing. And typically, Greg, I believe this was the word on the street, was you had to be doing like some type of personal training already, or like already in a CrossFit gym as a CrossFit trainer. There was some stuff. So like Jeff and I started our first affiliate in 2012, Sundown CrossFit. Shout out, still open to this day. You could go see them in Santa Clara, California, owned by Susie. And I think the head coach is Marvin now.
Yeah, he's over there now.
And then also Jordan Junta, the resident chiropractor, has been there. They've been there forever. So if you ever go to Santa Clara, California, and you need a place to drop in, Sundown CrossFit. So we opened that up, submitted our essay. We had our level 1s. We were coaching at another affiliate, and we were able to do it. I remember
I forgot about that you guys had to do that.
Yeah. And if you remember, like we were super nervous because there were people who got denied.
Yeah.
I don't think they do that anymore though. I don't think they I don't know. I don't think they background check people as much as they used to, or really get in the weeds. I think that was something that was really cool about CrossFit being privately owned by Greg, and he had a team and he really cared about that stuff, really cared about the affiliates, even though I think there are affiliates or affiliate owners that might say otherwise. And I would, for someone who's been doing it since 2012, which is almost like and I was coaching CrossFit and in CrossFit since 2011. You've been in it since 2010. So like relatively the first games were in 2007. Like we've been around. We're not the OGers who were doing like CrossFit in 2004, 2005, like in the park, but we've been around.
We've seen the sport in just CrossFit in general for
I mean, we saw Reebok get involved.
Yeah.
The first sponsor of not actually the first sponsor, because the first sponsor was Under Armour, and that didn't work out. If people remember that.
Yep.
What was the other one that people had a hard problem with?
I thought it was like Innovate.
Maybe? No, Innovate was just around. They were the
first shoe that everyone wore. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, the sponsor of the CrossFit Games, I want to say like Muscle Milk or something, like,
I don't remember.
Because it was Under Armour and something else. You could go back and look at the 2009, 2010 CrossFit Games on YouTube and look at like whatever banners.
What was the year that Reebok got involved?
2012.
13? Oh, okay.
2012. Actually, no, maybe 2011. I'm trying to think now. That's a good question. I just remember the Nano 1 came out in 2012, and it was like a big deal. And they had the orange and yellow shoes and like, yeah, the games are kind of cool that year. But anyways, so we did that. And then a couple of years later, probably 2014. So like two to 3 years later, I took my level 2 for the first time. And that one was interesting. So I went to the ranch. Yeah, it was 2014 because we were training for regionals.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I went to the ranch and Miranda Oldroyd was one of the level 1 seminar staffers. And she was there, and Adrian Bosman was there. Pat Sherwood was there, and Jason, and they were all training for regionals. And so was I at the time. And like, that was really fun. It was cool to talk to them. They kicked our butts at regionals, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I took my level 2 at Aromas, took my level 1 at Aromas at the ranch, took my second level 2 at the ranch. I think Heather,
I did it with you that time.
the second level 2.
Yeah.
Oh, so we've done 2 level 2s together.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's right. We have. Ah, shit. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. So so I took my level 1. That was cool at the ranch. Took it with Alex. Remember Alex Overman?
Mm-hmm.
Him and I took it there. We became friends,
Mm-hmm.
started coming to Sundown. He's one of the reasons why I got to go to regionals, because I was the alternate and he was leaving for PT school.
Yep.
And I got on the team. So shout out Alex Overman. Thanks a lot. Giving me my regional experience, getting thrown in there. Did a good job. Yeah, that was cool. That we did Fran. I remember, I think I did like 4:30 or something.
Wait, during your level 1, you did Fran? Okay.
Yep. Level 1 did Fran. Yeah, I think it was like 4:30.
That's what they used to do at the ranch all the time, because it was very nostalgic, because they had the rig outside.
Well, let me hold on.
I know why they changed it.
You tell that story.
But they did that back in 2012, 13, I guess 14 also. And then they had somebody fall off the rig
at
a level 1, and now I think they changed it to like thrusters and burpees or something like that.
Yeah, they either do 21, 15, 9 of thrusters and burpees or 3 rounds of 15 thrusters, 15 burpees.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they changed that workout. I don't know what it is now. I do know like in 2018 to like 2020 before COVID, that's what it was.
It seems though, like after talking to just like different coaches, taking level 1, taking level 2, it kind of seems like they've deterred from that, and it's almost like at the discretion of whoever the flow master is or whoever's coaching, it seems like. But I don't know, it doesn't seem as consistent as it was back in the day.
Yeah, no, they did Fran back in the day for everybody. Everybody everywhere did Fran.
Yeah.
It was cool. And I remember Alex did it in like 2:11 and everyone was like blown away. And then that same year he went to regionals as an individual, which was cool. Yeah. So
I think the year you did your level 2 for the first time, I think is when I did my level 1, or maybe it was.
I think it was slightly before.
Yeah, it might have been 2013. But I also did that at the ranch, and I think I did Fran also, because that was kind of around the same time.
Nice. And then second level 2, Pat Barber and oh man, I'm drawing a blank. Austin. No.
You're gonna say the guy who
Milpitas, CrossFit Milpitas.
Yeah, it's Austin, but I can't think of his last name. Oh, yeah.
I don't want to say I want to say Austin Spencer, but that's a different CrossFitter.
It's gonna come to me. Keep going.
Well, Austin, really great guy. And then what was the girl's name? Shoot. I argued with her about deadlift setup.
I don't know if she was as well-known person.
Yeah.
I can't remember who it was.
Either way, doing it the second time, okay experience for me. I had a bad attitude, I think.
Yeah.
I
think we kind of talked about this in the car over the weekend, this being like your third time taking the level 2. And I think the second time, because this time was my second time, and I feel like maybe we had a similar experience.
Role reversal.
Yeah. Well, we went into it. I think you kind of were like not really hyped over the weekend or leading up to the weekend. And I think my advice to you was like, just embrace it. Like, try to find something you're going to learn in this weekend and just enjoy being there.
The third time.
The third time.
Well, let's talk about the first time, my bad attitude. Set the stage for that.
I'm just saying, like, yes, I think your attitude was different this time.
That's fine. Let's talk about the first time. Let's tell them the story of the first time where I had a bad attitude. Because I was in a mood. I think let's count back 5 years. What was that, 2018? 2019. So by that time, I was coaching with Brute Strength. I've coached at the CrossFit Games a couple of times, been to regionals, tons of experience, coached the semifinals, coached regional level, it was regionals at the time, coach regional athletes, games athletes, team games, supported on, with other athletes, like all of the stuff. And I felt that I had it like dialed in. As far as, and truthfully, I do, like when in the context of the level 2, it's not, in CrossFit methodology. I was just more upset of like at the time, and still this way a little bit in CrossFit, like this is the way we do it. And this is the only way. Right. And I always had a bad attitude about that because I was like, okay, but it's not, like if you look at powerlifting community and the way that someone deadlifts or back squats, like low bar versus high bar, the way you set up for a squat, Olympic lifters sends their hips basically straight down when they squat. They don't send their butt back first and then down. Like some might, and yeah, initiating and whatever, being soft through the knees, like little details of that. I was annoyed because when you watch really experienced people and when you coach, it gets the job done if you have somebody who's brand new and knows nothing about CrossFit. And I think at that time, I didn't really get on board with that's the lens they're looking through is like someone walks through the door day one, this is a new person, explain it simply and teach them how to do these things. Where I was fully immersed in like nuance and science and kinesiology. And like I was coaching high school athletics as well. And like the carryover, and there's just so much information. So I had so much information, application, and experience that I was annoyed with the, I guess, pedestrianism of it all. Like,
yeah. Well, and I was going to say, like, I think, and again, we kind of talked about it this weekend, but it's like, CrossFit does coach the 9 foundational movements a specific way. And I think my opinion is they do that because
explain what the 9 foundational movements are for people who don't just go through them, rattle them off.
Air squat, bed ball clean.
No, in the order: air squat, front squat, overhead squat.
Okay. Air squat, front squat, overhead squat, med ball clean, press, push press.
No, the med ball clean comes after the deadlift and sumo deadlift high pull.
Okay, press.
No, it can't,
push press.
These people
push
have never.
Jerk.
If you've never done your level 1,
I didn't know that you wanted me to give them in a specific order for you.
We'll put them in the right order. You know what I'm saying? Let
Air
the people
squat,
learn.
Front squat, overhead squat.
Good.
Strict press, push jerk, deadlift, sumo deadlift, high pull, med ball clean.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the exact order. You'll find it in the level 1 training manual to paint a picture for you guys. And they only teach those 9 movements in the level 1 and the level 2. They go over some stuff in theory, and they go over like the GHC sit up in your level 1. And if depending on the instructor you have, you might do strict ring muscle up, you might not. But realistically, it's just those 9 covered. That's all you learn. And they teach you the points of performance of those movements and basically a general understanding of those. And then after a weekend, they send you on your way.
Right.
So I think for me, I was going into my level 2 the second time. I was annoyed by it because like the first time I went in my level 2, I was just like, oh my God, this is so great. Like you're getting feedback as a coach because you don't typically get feedback because you're either the highest level coach in your gym or you're the gym owner. And like, no one's telling you, hey, you're not seeing this, or that's not the range of motion, or they're moving like this. What do you see? Like you're never pushed on those things because like when I say CrossFit HQ calls it like a heavy lift. It's a heavy lift for gym owners to do coaches education. And most gym owners or head coaches, not all, so like don't get your panties in a bunch if like you are doing continued education, but most CrossFit gyms, and I would agree with their statement, do not give continued education to their coaches or coaches development. And if they do, it's not always the best or effective in the way of getting them closer to being a higher level coach. It's more of like classroom management, time management, equipment management, cleanup, setup and breakdown. It's not like, all right, how's your eye coming along? Do you see the bar looping around the knees? Where their position of their hips? Like, and then good luck translating that to the members to move better. So like, to be fair, after doing a third time, I think I should have been nicer in my level 2 the second time.
Well, and again, like kind of what I was trying to get at earlier was just, I think that it's designed for the people that are having the experience that you did the very first time, right? It's like they did the level 1, they've been coaching for a year to 5 years. I think my experience in the last 2 times, a lot of people go through it very early. Like in after getting their level 1, like maybe a year. So they don't even really have a lot of coaching experience, because most of the time they're people that are just doing 2 classes a week. And so they've done not that many hours, maybe in the year or 2, right? So then they come into the level 2 where they're being challenged more on seeing and cueing and correcting and teaching. And they're just like, oh, whoa, like this isn't, because they're not having people in their gym that are doing that for them as well. So again, and I think at the level 2, what they're doing is they have you pick one of those 9 foundational movements, and that's the thing you're going to teach all weekend, right? And so they're doing it in small group, they're doing it in one-on-one teaching, and they're being very meticulous of how you progress and teach those movements, right? And if you deviate from that, they're calling you on that, right? And that's okay. And I think that that's part of their job, right? And I think it's also part of our job to understand how to coach those movements and how CrossFit wants you to coach those movements. But then it's like, it's not rare, but it's less common to have coaches like Todd or myself, or people who have been doing it a really long time, coaching full time, that come in and now they want to kind of not argue, but they want to challenge that a little bit, because they have been coaching a really long time. And obviously that there's different ways to coach these movements and get people to do the same thing. And so that's kind of, I think, like the hard thing. And so even for me this weekend, it was like, okay, I'm just going to go in and I'm going to just take the feedback and take something from that. And I felt like I did do that, which was great. But I think, you just have to kind of understand what they want you to take away from that weekend and be okay with that too.
Yeah. So they do have a way of teaching things. So once you can get over that, but like the second time I took it, I wasn't really in that mindset. Thankfully, my homie Pat Barber was the flow master. So it made it easy enough to like course correct. And I just kind of simmered down and just like chilled out.
Well, I want you to tell the deadlift story. And then I also want to tell a story about something really cool that Pat Barber did that weekend too, but go on.
Well, yeah. So I was in the deadlift, like instructing group, and sometimes I like to ask questions just to see like, okay, what's your thought process here? Because I get it, but I'm not understanding. Like the girl was teaching the deadlift, and this was my second time going through level 2, not this last weekend, but coming up, and they're going to the knee in a straight line because the bar needs to follow in a straight path all the way up, and the knees need to get out of the way and accommodate the bar. So the knees are getting back, pushing their knees back, their hips are staying, their hips and knees are opening at the same rate, and the chest is coming up, all the things they're supposed to be doing. The thing that the girl did was, though, once she got the bar past her knees, she would then rebend and bring her knees through a little bit as she was opening her torso and standing up. And the level 1 coach, flow master, what do they call level 4 red shirt person? I don't know what they actually call them. Was like, no, you got to stand straight up and down. And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. Cause like, I agree for like a beginner, but we got all these coaches here who are enthusiastic about coaching. Like, and I'm going to actually look up the quote just to make sure I'm right about what Greg said about coaching. But in powerlifting or even in strongman, there is deviation where people drive their knees through, get their like thighs underneath the bar and quote unquote hitch the bar up. But like they're lifting anywhere from 800 to 1,000 pounds, for the men, and anywhere from like 400 to 600 pounds for the ladies. And it's just a different style. It doesn't make it right or wrong, and it's interesting though, at the time it was like black and white, no other options. This is how you deadlift. And I was like, hold on a second. Westside Barbell has made a phenomenal living and facility, and athletes around the world and educational system and everything else would tell you otherwise. So like, why are you saying this is, the end all be all? Whereas like conversely, and we can dive into our weekend experience, but like this last weekend, what I'm really happy about though is those types of interactions changed a lot. Because even Lindsay was saying, hey, when we're looking for things, and they really dived into triaging stuff, which, at the time when I took it the second time, I don't think that was on top of mind of like, hey, they could probably move more load by bringing their knees through and opening up their chest as they're deadlifting. But we're talking about general GPP people just trying to learn how to deadlift. This is the way to do it most effectively for beginners and new learners, there is opportunity to expand your knowledge and learn about different ways of techniques and positions and everything else to expand yourself as a coach. That was never said. This weekend, though, that was said a
Mhm.
couple of times. There was also things said of like, what's the most important thing? And when you're looking at safety, keeping the back flat, neutral spine, and not rounding the back under load. But then there's also conversation of like, yeah, but if you're picking up, let's say something at a deficit, or you're picking up dumbbells,
Or
or
a
you're,
stone
or stone or sandbag, you're probably going to round your back. And that's okay, as long as through the dynamic portion of the lift, you're not moving your spine. Now I get it. There's time in between those, 2014 to 2024, it's 10 years. Like, there's room for growth. And I appreciate that CrossFit has grown in that way, and that
Mhm.
subtlety of those things. And I think I only get that contrast because I've done it, twice now with two different lenses and approaches. So like I could, and anybody listening to this who's a coach who has education, I guess they probably could resonate with me of like, that could be very frustrating. You're in a situation where you have to bite your tongue, stay quiet, nod your head, even though maybe it's not in agreement. Because my concern, where I get fiery from, and like, no, is because I know that there are, in my group, let's say 7 to 12 other coaches that are going to be in other gyms, going to be coaching out in the world. And I'm just like, that's not enough right now for like these people who are going to go stand in front of other humans and help them with their health and fitness. Like we need to, so I think I get really passionate about it, but like CrossFit level 1 coaching is probably not the place that I could, interject that, or become like a level 1 trainer. That's not going to help because they give a rigid structure of how they're going to teach things, again, because it's the context of teaching beginners, which I wholeheartedly now and have over the course of the years looked back on and agreed with. Like, yes, that is the best way to teach somebody who has zero experience. But, somebody who's been training for a year, 2 years, there's kind of a better way once they get down that road. And thankfully that was said multiple times over this last weekend. So I really enjoyed that. All right. What was the story you were going to tell while I look up this quote?
Oh, well, when I took my level 1 the first time, which was your second time back at the ranch, I remember in one of our breakout groups, we were in a like small group teaching, to our group of 5 or 6 people that we were at. And there was a guy in our group who didn't speak English. And, he was there. I mean, I think he kind of like understood what was happening and when they were instructing, but he didn't really, I don't know, it was very minimal. And so, they talk a lot about teaching, and then they talk about, when you're teaching, are you verbal? Are you tactile? Or are you visual? Right. And in the group, they were like, they go to each person. They're like, okay, you're going to teach your movement. You're only going to give visual cues, or you're only going to give tactile cues or verbal cues. And he was challenging one of the people in the group, like, you can't even use verbal cues. Cause I think that's the one that most people always like default to is verbal. And it was very interesting because they couldn't do it. And they had such a hard time trying to teach this guy. I think it was like the push press or something. And they couldn't teach it to him because they kept wanting to speak to him. And it was very interesting because then Pat Barber comes in, and obviously he's an amazing coach and been doing it a really long time. And literally in less than 2 minutes, he was getting the guy to do whatever. And it was just very cool. And it was like, I just feel like that was an experience that I will like never forget. Cause it's like, you have people, especially in the Bay Area, right? You get lots of different melting pot of people coming in that don't speak English, and trying to get them to come into your class, understand what's going on top of trying to get them to be a part of the group, know what's happening. And a lot of times they have never done CrossFit. So it was interesting to me. And like I said, something I'll never forget. So when I have those types of people that come into the gym, I try to remember what he did. And I think that, like you don't have to be able to speak to them to get them to be in your class and know what's going on. And
also, movement is a universal language.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that people don't understand, right? So if you get the fundamentals of movement down, you can teach anything. I mean, I wouldn't say anything, but you have a really solid base to teach a lot of things. And this was the quote I was looking for. Pretty funny that his shirt, Greg Glassman's shirt, says unbuyable. Because someone ultimately bought CrossFit. I think for a long time that was the thing, like unbuyable. And it was until, he got pushed out by the community. So that's why it was bought. But anyways, the magic is in the movement. So the movements we do, they are magical, right? And that's why you see all of these fitness programs, whether that's Orange Theory, F45, your Barry's Boot Camp, what else? The trainer down the street having you do air squats, deadlifts, back squats, even now thrusters, which I would argue is a movement that was created by CrossFit and got popularized by CrossFit. Not that no one ever did it, put a front squat and a push press together, but doing it over and over and over at a high speed, high volume, moderate loads to create a stimulus that is like no other. CrossFit made that very popular. And so those of you guys out there who are doing a front squat with a push press, you can thank CrossFit and Greg Glassman for that. These movements, they cover a large load and we move them long distances quickly. Even like a ring muscle up is a large load strength movement that covers a long distance very quickly. Simone Biles moves her body weight, which I don't want to say it's a large load, but it's your maximum load, a very long distance, and gets 12 feet up in the air and spins around 100,000 times very quickly. So
then lands on her feet.
Yeah, lands on her feet. Well, like that's the essence of magic is in the movement, right?
Yeah.
High power output, force production movements that give you a very, very phenomenal adaptation. And that's why we don't do a whole lot of low compound or single joint movements like bodybuilding style stuff, unless it's, accessory, or you're doing a program that you're trying to create a specific adaptation other than just general health and fitness and GPP, right? Then the art is in the programming, which is interesting because there is art of programming and then science is in the explanation, which is like paired with the art of programming. And when the explanation of the programming is the scientific backing and base of it, that's where you get this beautiful thing. And then the fun is in the community, which we all know. If you go to CrossFit gym, you have accountability, you have a lot of different things, and you got a lot of fun people, and they do that themselves. But if you have the right movements, a good program, and a scientific explanation of that program, you're going to have a very high yielding fitness program, which is something that I think was conveyed over the course of this weekend, which I really like, because I think we lose sight of that as CrossFit coaches. So like the level 2, well, let's get this out of the way. Technically, I should have took my level 3 and just sat for the test. What I didn't realize, and they made me aware, but thankfully there were 3 other people in the room who thought the same thing. And the way it's worded on the website, I actually thought you had to take your level 3 test like every 3 years. And I was like, I'm not into that. Like, that's a 3-hour test of 150 questions covering a breadth and depth of CrossFit terminology and methodology that I just don't want to sit for, when I could take a test and a course over the course of 2 days and sit there, for 8 hours for 2 days and then have that for 5 years. Like, I just wasn't into it.
Yeah.
Then I was informed. So those of you guys out there, so now I'm going to take my level 3, that once you take your level 3, as long as you do continued education units and uphold your CPR certification, you don't have to get recertified. So it's indefinite as long as you continue to do. Yes. See, this is what I was telling them. It does say recert is $250 on L3. So you still got to figure that out. But that was the confusion. And I talked to Lindsay about that. And as long as you keep up your CEUs, you pay the $250. It's not a recertifying. It's the processing fee of, and their money that they get, letting them know, hey, I still want to keep my level 3 and here are my CEUs. And also coaching hours. You have to do coaching hours.
Yeah.
L3 for me too, but not sure what that means on their little chart. Yeah, I know the little chart is confusing.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about with them. And they, Dennis and Lindsay both said, wow, that does look confusing. We'll have to notify somebody.
Yeah.
Because it needs to be more clear. And, maybe I'm just dumb. And the 3 other people in the room who were participants.
Oh, I mean, I thought the same thing. I mean, that's why I'm taking my level 2 again too. But
150
now it's
coaching
just
hours.
bought us some time, and now we can
that's
take
good.
this test.
Yeah.
Because
So we're going to take our level 3.
I think literally expires this weekend. So
yeah. So we're going to take our level 3. Probably not for a year, maybe or 2.
Yeah.
Use some of my level 2 up.
Give you some time to study.
Yeah, give me some time. All right. So this weekend we went in. That was the backstory. We talked about our shirts. We said how it's Harley's birthday and gave you some history.
Yeah.
We also should give a shout out to CrossFit. Speaking of, because CrossFit, I think, takes a lot of flack for a lot of things. And like, I don't know how big or small their team is. And they always say, well, we're a small team, but I emailed them, and informed them like, hey, look, my level 2 is expiring and you guys actually don't have any level 2s in the area, near me. That's within, it was, I think 300 miles is what I said. Cause I looked and there were some that were like,
this is back in February.
yeah, this is back in February,
Yeah.
or no, earlier than that. It was like in December or November of last year.
Yeah, okay, because it was
I was like,
expiring
hey,
in February.
my level 2 is going to expire. Like, I'm an affiliate owner. I need to take this test, but like, that's kind of a huge burden to fly somewhere, stay in a hotel, or drive somewhere, stay in a hotel to take this test. And I got to pay for the test. Like, can I get an extension? And the same thing with Heather, like too, it was like, can I also get an extension? Like, she could have took her level 1, but why would you want to go down from level 2 to level 1? Because there aren't any in the area. And that has to go with the fact that like they're doing less certifications around the world. And that's okay. That they're just not doing as many. And they emailed back and they gave us a 8 or 9 month extension. And we signed up for the one here in Rochester and, drove down the road and took it at CrossFit Park Ave, and it was all good. So like, shout out to CrossFit for being accommodating in that way. So if you have questions, always email them. If you're a coach or an affiliate owner and like you're in a jam and it's a real, significant like burden on you financially or time wise, then like speak out. And they were very accommodating, very helpful. It was cool. So keep that in mind. I want to give them a shout out. They are working hard. I know, again, they take a lot of heat, and I think sometimes it's unjust because people don't understand the business aspect of it, what they're dealing with. People aren't asking the right questions, in my opinion. Sometimes they don't understand that their situation is not as special as they think it is. And then they get told that. And, and like arguably CrossFit could have said, hey, you want to get your level 2, you better get on an airplane and spend the money and get out there. Like, and that would have been a fair statement to make, because that is true too. Like, if I want to continue owning an affiliate and have the freedom to run my business and be a trainer and make money using CrossFit and the CrossFit methodology and everything else, that's on me to burden that and get after it. So I appreciate what they did.
Yeah. Well, and especially because the CrossFit site only gives you like 3 or 4 months out of like what certifications are coming up.
Yeah.
We actually didn't know that there was going to be that one in Rochester in July. Because I think if we would have sent them that email back in December and said, hey, we see this one in July, we really want to take that, I think that would have been more incentive for them, because then we'd be like, okay, we're going to sign up. But they just, like I said, arbitrarily just were like, okay, we're going to give you 6 months or 8 months or whatever. And then luckily it just worked out that we had that one. But
yeah, so I do want to give them a shout out, and that was good. So they are doing good things. They are trying. And all right. So the level 2, we go on in. Should we just tell people on here about Lindsay and I?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, we'll start out with that, because everybody, we're checking in.
It's a good story.
I know, we're checking in, and like Lindsay was like, I know you from somewhere. And I was like, oh man, here we go. Because I was gonna try and not say anything. I was hoping that she just like forgot.
Well, because you walk in and you just like know immediately.
Because I have a good memory of people.
Yeah.
And like who they are. I can't remember their first and last name very well most of the time. That's what Marissa's for. My wife does a phenomenal job of remembering people's first and last name. But like, you ask me someone's back squat, I'll tell you what it is. But yeah, I have a good memory of like where I met you, what we were doing. It's not hard for me. So I was like, okay, yeah, Ultimate Beastmaster. We were on a fitness challenge reality show together, myself and I think like 15 other US contestants against other country contestants, like I think like Brazil, China. So similar, like Olympic style, like where you're like US versus blah, 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 and everything else. So it's on Netflix. It's
kind of like the current like Titan Games kind of thing. Yeah. But this is like what they did back in like 2013 or 14.
Yeah, it is actually like the Titan Games, because we had to do the obstacle thing, but it wasn't like head to head or anything. Like, I mean, it was, but it wasn't.
You like left the gym for like a month and we're like, I'm going on this reality show.
Yeah, I did leave the gym for a month. So it's Ultimate Beastmaster on Netflix. It's still there. You search it.
All your athletes are going to be looking that
I'm up. Episode 5 if you want to watch it. I will say, for caveat, to watch some of the other episodes so you can see, because when they go to me, like they do my interview, and literally you're going to watch like 5-6 minutes of this show, and that's I was gone for like a month and I'm on the show for 5 or 6 minutes. Like that's how these things work. Right. And you only see me do some of the stuff, but if you watch like the episode 1 or 2, you'll get to see some of the people go through the first portion of the course. So you get to see all the stuff that I made it through before they like cut to me, just to give myself some credit. Cause I had to do a lot of work to get to some of the pieces.
So Lindsay, who was coaching the seminar this weekend, was also on that show.
She was also on the show, and she's like, "Oh, I know you from somewhere." And I was like, "Ultimate and Beastmaster," and she was like, "No."
It was too good.
Yeah. So we didn't. She told our group at the end of the weekend. So maybe,
she did.
Yeah, maybe people watched it, but you guys can watch it now. It's funny enough. I tell people who ask, I'm not really ashamed of it. I was really happy to do it. I got to talk about CrossFit quite a bit in our gym, Sundown CrossFit at the time, and what I would do with the money if I won it. And it was basically like build a bigger gym. So not ashamed of it.
Well, the different contestants on there had like different modalities of fitness. So like Todd was kind of representing CrossFit
at the time. I was representing CrossFit, functional fitness. There was Ninja Warrior people. Yeah, it was cool. So check it out. Netflix, Ultimate Beastmaster, episode 5, season 1, because I think there is a season 2.
That's funny.
Anyways. So yeah, we roll in. That was pretty good. Day 1, you get assigned a movement, one of the 9 foundational movements that we already went over. What movement did you get, Heather?
Well,
no, just tell them the first day. We'll get into that.
I got air squat.
Air squat. I chose overhead squat. We got to pick. Heather, were you last to pick?
I was the last, and there was like 7 in our group, and they said you can't pick press or front squat. So I was like, okay, well, I ended up getting
tell them the reason. I know our group's reason why you can't do front squat. Did they tell you a reason why you couldn't do front squat?
I don't know. I'm assuming because she taught front squat in the lifting on the first day?
Because the front squat mobility.
Oh.
It's too hard for some people on the PVC, and they didn't want us doing a bunch of reps because of the lack of range of motion, and it's like bothers people.
Interesting.
That's the feedback they've gotten on their things. So like,
well, Todd and I were in different groups. So
yeah, we're in different groups, which was great. Yeah, so they had air squat, had overhead squat. Day 1, they cover classroom organization, how to run some stuff, how to demo the movement, talk about the movement, basically run through your progression of the movement from start to finish.
Well, the first breakout was teaching and seeing.
Yep.
And so you would teach your movement, and then you would watch around, or you would look at all the people that you're teaching it to, and you'd be like seeing how they're moving, but you're not allowed to correct them.
Yeah, you would tell the instructor.
Like, you're spotting it and you're telling the instructor what's happening, but you're not correcting any movement.
Yeah.
And then the second breakout is basically the seeing and the correcting part. So now you're just having them move. You're spotting the issues potentially, and then you're correcting them and then each person had I think with mine, I got verbal. So I was correcting verbally. The other people would go and they would correct visually or tactilely. Tactilely, is that a word? With tactile cues.
I'm not sure. Close enough.
You know what I meant.
Tactilely. Tactile cue.
Yeah. So that was like the second breakout.
Yeah. Cool. Anything stand out on the first day?
In what regard?
I mean, we broke out and we come back. I think you asked me if I was having a good time. I was like, yeah, I'm having a great time. I'm keeping my attitude.
Well, it could go either way with you. It's like, you're just like, I can't believe it. They're telling me all these things. And that's not right.
I was trying to be relaxed.
You had a good attitude.
I had a good attitude the whole weekend. But any nuggets from the first day? I feel like the second day is like the meat of a lot of the stuff, like but first day.
I feel like the first day is always pretty hard because I think a lot of the people are just digesting what they're trying to ask you to do. And by the end of the day, especially like that second part where they do the seeing and the correcting, the instructor was giving everybody feedback on what they were missing, what they want them to improve, because day 2, you come back in and you just full on teach the movement, teach the progressions. You're teaching, seeing, cueing, correcting, all of the things. And so I think people were able to kind of digest it overnight, and they did a lot better the second day. But that first day, I feel like it's a little bit of a shit show because people are just like trying to understand, I think, what they want them to do. and how they specifically want them to teach movements. And
Yeah. I don't know. I enjoyed like looking at the points of performance and just talking about them and then demoing, which that's the biggest thing from day one in my group, that I take a lot of pride in the practice and the time I take to move well as a mover. I've practiced a lot and I still have errors in my movement. There's, sometimes I don't reach full hip extension at the top of lifts. I don't squeeze my butt fully. There's things where, even though like sometimes I am squeezing my butt, but it does look like it does not look like I'm squeezing my butt, but I am. So just anatomically, the way I'm built, it does look weird. And I do get that a lot, but you come over, check, you want to squeeze my butt, 'cause it's squeezed. But yeah, so like other than that and errors, because no one's perfect, I have spent a lot of time working on my movement. And when you can move as a coach really, really well, it's so easy to teach people how to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's something that they did hit home the first day that I really appreciated, to try and remind the coaches like, hey, look, this is a practice that you always have to keep doing. Like Dennis was a phenomenal mover, the L1 staff. And like he talked about this in our group a little bit to people. And I applaud him because he was like, hey, you need to work on your demos. And like, that's good to be told as a coach. Cause I think people think like, well, I'm moving well. And it's like, well, maybe not.
Yeah.
He was like, hey, what you guys could do is videotape yourself for the 9 foundational movements. And even though it's uncomfortable, you could start picking apart your movement flaws and your mechanic flaws and try to work on those things. So then when you demo with just a PVC pipe or an air demo of something, it is the best perfect movement. Because if you got a class of 10 to 20 people and you move terribly, everybody in your gym is going to move like you or the predominant coach.
Yeah.
And I love that he hit that home on the first day, because I
Yeah.
was like, thank you. Because I don't
Yeah.
think that gets covered enough.
Yeah.
You don't have to be able to do like, they use the example of ring muscle up or chest to bars, high skill movements or lift a heavy weight as a coach, but you better be moving perfectly.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
Yeah. And Lindsay did actually, now that you say that, she did say that in our group on the first day, and really, and advising people to film themselves either in their, even in their class. Like, I think they do that with the seminar staff when they're like interviewing to like get their red shirt, is they have them, go and teaching classes and whatnot. So they're actually asking all of their coaches going through this to do that as well, to video part of their class, also just video themselves moving so that you can watch it back and observe yourself. Because sometimes you think, and myself included, it's like, oh, this looks great. And then you're looking at it and it's not that great. Right.
Well, I joked with
Right.
you, and I know you got mad and you get mad right now, but she was like, I have the air squat when she came back from our group. I was like, cool. Did you squat below parallel? Because it's not, Heather's got the Danny Spiegel problem. And I agree that Danny Spiegel's legs are bigger. That's hard to get down below parallel. Now, is it impossible? No. Right.
Yeah.
Heather also has, for the years that I've known her, hip problems, like with some anterior hip issues that sometimes when she gets really tight or really sore prevents her from going below parallel. And so I just joke with her about it, but there's some real athlete history there.
Yeah.
And it's just fun to razz her. But at the end of the day, like her as a coach, being aware, you can be like, hey guys, today I've been training a lot, just like all of you. My hip's really sore. You need to squat below parallel. In my demo, it's probably not below parallel because my hip is sore. And they also made a point to, that's okay. That's okay as a coach. Cause like oh dude, there's so many times that I will be so sore, like my quads or my glutes are going to rip off the bone, and I will demo something and I just like suck it up. I'm like, you better move through full range of motion right now. And I'm like dying inside, and I tell no one. So now I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, I'm glad you guys said that, because for years I just feel like, you squat, you do this, you put your shoulder overhead. No one needs to know that you're in pain right now, like, because you have soreness from training. Because I literally sometimes can't, like, because the soreness, it's just like,
Yeah. But I think the point is that coaches need to understand their own movement and recognize how they and know how they move, right? Because I think sometimes people just go and coach a class and they blindly have no idea what they're even doing.
That's true.
Right. And they're demoing things, or I'll observe classes, or I'll watching people even over the weekend, just, teach every single one of these foundational movements. And I'm just like, well, that's not a deadlift. Well, that's not
I
a
know.
this, that's not a this, whatever. Right. And I think it's more, like I said, just having that awareness. You don't have to be perfect, but having your awareness, it's like, oh, I don't always squat below parallel, or, oh, I don't always like whatever, stand all the way up, or whatever the thing is, right? Because it's like, you're just going to continue. And I think it's, even if you're verbally saying these things as you're demoing, it's bringing awareness to the athletes that are watching you.
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
Yeah, that was huge day one. And you're right there. I mean, this is not negative to the people who took the course. I am one of the, next to Dennis, I was the best mover in the room. And that was apparent. They made it apparent. You were there, like, and it's okay. Like and I've earned that by working on my movement, intentionally, actively, not just through CrossFit, but martial arts and everything else. And like, I do try to be good and athletic. Like, I really enjoy that. So take that as a coach. And I think that was one of the big takeaways, and so if you aren't taking a level 2 yet, this is something that you could implement right now as a coach, is like, work on your movement demos of the movements, whether that's warm-up movements, it's actual functional movements that you're teaching in classes. Make sure that thing looks good, because like Marissa said, your clients and athletes will reproduce what they see. So if you're moving a certain way, and it's funny because I do watch certain coaches sometimes, and then I watch their athletes, and I'm like, oh man, they move just like that coach. And you're like, oh, that's because they see them every day. And that's, no one's fault other than like the coach not being aware. And if the coach isn't aware, it's still not really their fault. Once they become aware that they don't move well. So anybody's listening to this, if you don't look at yourself, it's your fault. It's your fault that those people are moving, not to the best of the movement standards and mechanics and abilities, and you're really holding them back. And Dennis and Lindsay both hit that home a lot, just like we are, of like, the visual aspect of coaching is huge. And you really, because you can do way more with the visual. And like your anecdotal story of Pat Barber, the guy didn't speak any English, and he got him to do the thing with probably visual and tactile cues only. So that speaks volumes. You don't need a lot of words. We had this girl in our group who's only been coaching for 8 months. Phenomenal coach. She did in explanation. She did a great job. I was jealous of how well she was able to rattle through points of performance, the progression, and she stayed in order, in sequence. There was no ums, there was no nothing. You could tell that she was, I don't know, she does something. I didn't ask her. She doesn't like teach or anything. She just, or it's just innate, but she was very like, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and it was perfect.
She probably has a good,
I joked.
memory.
Yeah, I joked. I was like, she's got a photographic memory. There's no way. But she could not visually cue somebody to be better. And she had a hard time with tactile cues and understanding, like seeing what's happening and correcting what's happening. Right. And that's just where she needs to grow. But if you were to put her out in a class, she's going to run through the warm up, the movement, the exercises, the skills, the cool down. Everything's gonna be perfect. The people are going to move well because not move well. They're going to understand. I mean, they might move well. She had okay demos. They do need improvement, but they're going to understand everything from start to finish. It's clear. There's no like, okay, I don't know what you're saying. There's just boom, 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 boom. Right. It was so good. So props to her. I don't want to say her name on here because I don't want to like, I don't know. No one look her up or anything. But anyways, props to her. And that's really cool to see too, right? So coaches have different skill sets. And it's just like looking at that. Like if you're the person that can just boom, 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 boom perfectly, no ums, no ands, no dead space. Everything is just clear, concise, and you don't stumble over your words like I do often, and maybe that's it. That's why I do better visual demos, is because sometimes I can't talk very well. But it was cool. And so if she can line up her movements with her verbal, you're now, 70% effective.
Yeah.
Right. And like, it's cool to see. So, I'm very good with seeing tactily correcting and visual. And I can't explain stuff, but I think I'm long-winded and I stumble over my words too much. But it was really cool for that, and seeing everybody's different piece of like, oh, you need to work on this, you need to work on that. For me, day one, my feedback was given that I need more of a systematic approach of like what I want to teach to the people. Whereas I went through the steps and the process of this is how you do it. These are the things I'm looking for. And then I react to the people and I correct them, which Dennis was like, you do a really good job of that. Like you're like, bam, 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 like shooting a gun. Like you got a ton of bullets and you're just like, boom, that person's fixed. Bam, that person's fixed. This person. And that's cool. But you gave them a demo, you gave them this thing, and you're not clear on what you expect everyone to be focusing on, which could create some confusion. And I agree with him, is like, if I'm like, hey, today, guys, we're all going to focus on keeping our chest up, and maybe 30% of the people don't need to focus on that. That's totally fine though. That's my chosen focus as the coach for that day. Maybe the next day, heels down. We're all getting our heels down. And maybe the next day, hip crease below the top of the knee. And that's the thing that I'm going to choose myself as a coach to hone in on. Now, he's not saying that it's bad that I do that. He was saying that like, that's just a really high level coach and you can go in a room and start coaching up everybody, but you can lose your lesson plan. You can lose the reins of your gym. And he's like, it's probably not for you in your gym because it's your gym. You're there all the time. If you're a full-time coach, probably won't happen. But let's say you're a part-time coach, you only coach, let's say 2 classes a week or 3 classes a week. You're going to have a really hard time systemizing and reining people in and having control over that class because you don't know what you're doing and you don't have enough experience to do what I'm doing as a coach. And I really appreciate that because I think there is a lot of value, again, like anything, going back to the basics of coaching. So that was good feedback for me on day one of like, this is the only thing I see you're doing that you can improve on, is bringing it back to the basics of the systemized thing. You're going to approach it this way because you want to as the coach. Don't respond to how they're moving. Like blind your eyes.
That was literally my same exact feedback.
Yeah. And, well, he
and
said,
maybe just because we like coached together a lot. I don't know.
No. He said
I had very similar feedback.
Him and Lindsay both days, because we had Lindsay the next day. She switched over to our group, and they both said like, and I believe this, and I watch it happen with coaches as they evolve. As you become an experienced coach, you throw all that away because you're now just like, how do I get these people better? I want this person better, that person, and you're just like, you're a gunslinger, and that is very effective and awesome because I think there are people who wonder how someone like myself, and I've done this, and my wife and you have done this. We've coached 30 to 40 person classes. And when I say coach, like we're not just managing, like people are getting cues and corrections and little nuggets, and they're getting stuff. And we do a very good job of circling around and getting to everyone and like improving people at least 1 to 5% each day they come in here with something. As long as they're receptive to it and they're coachable. Because sometimes people say, leave me alone. You're just meeting them where they're at.
Right.
But I think that was huge for me to remember of like, maybe some days I could just turn it back and not do that and be like, hey, no. We're all working on chest up. Well, what about, because when I think of this now, I think about like higher level coaching. I think of other athletes. Like this morning I was working with one of Marissa's hybrid athletes. And I was like, hey, look, all I want you to do is lift your chest. Just lift it up. Just lift it up through the snatch. Just lift. And she made the snatch like in the second try just by lifting her chest. And so it's like, okay, so like keeping it simple in that way and just saying, no, don't, nothing else. Cause there were a lot of other things going on too. And I told her after, I was like, hey, look, there's other stuff going on, but just right now, lift your chest and maybe do that for a while, and that was something that I thought about when I was doing it. Not that I didn't do that before.
Yeah. But just keeping it to one thing and really having her just really think about and focus on one thing.
But the day one level too brought that to light of like keeping it simple, focusing on one singular thing, and working on your movement demos as a coach. I think those are my 2 big takeaways. You got any 2 from day one takeaways like that?
I mean, like I said, I had very similar feedback for about just like picking the one thing and staying
That's
with
what
one
happens
thing.
when you coach for
Well,
15 years.
yeah. Well, and I think it's like, so you're coaching like specifically in the air squat, right? And so you're like worrying about or focusing on the heels down thing. And you're looking, okay, everyone's got their heels down. But we had one girl in our group that literally was like this overextension of her spine, right? And so it was like this constant trying to fix that. And they're like, they kept telling me to come back, like, well, don't fix that. Don't fix that. Our heels down, right? So it's like I wanted, even though they're all down, it's like I wanted to instantly go and correct the other thing,
fault.
the other things, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of thing. They're like, well, if you're only talking about heels down, and that's the only thing you've talked about, that's the only thing you need to worry about. And then it's like, okay, now let's fix the lumbar spine and let's fix.
You can't say lumbar spine.
Sorry, the
neutral spine.
The neutral
Flat
spine.
back.
Sorry.
Flat back.
Yeah. And so then it's
We'll
like, okay, well, let's talk about that.
We'll
how do we fix that? And then you can correct those things. So just kind of not getting ahead of yourself on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think my other thing is they did the whole like macro, micro, macro thing, right? So it's like when you're teaching a movement.
I will say, Lindsay explained that to me because we talked about it. They reserved that conversation, she told me, for higher level coaches who are doing a really good job. Like they reserve that for people who are looking to coach on the level 1 seminar staff. So claps for you for getting that conversation. Okay. Cool. Even though it frustrated you, but go ahead.
That's good. Well, the macro, micro, macro is basically when you're coaching a class, it's like, okay, you give your instruction and then you're looking on a macro view. So you're being able to step back
and watching
a lot of people at once. Right. And then you cue the rep again. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to look at this person right here in front of me during the entire rep and then take a step back. And then the third rep, now you're going to look at the macro view again. Right. And then and you keep doing that. Right. So it's like you're having them constantly, you're out and then into the next person, out, and then you're looking into the next person. And I think my feedback was when I was in the micro, I was still looking, but then I'm looking over here too. Right. So I'm like, okay, instantly I know, I'm like, okay, they're good. What's this person doing? And she was constantly pulling me back. Like, don't do that because you're focusing on this one person. And I think my feedback was, well, I know she's good. I know she did it. Now I'm already off to the next thing. And so, and again, I don't think that was necessarily a bad thing. I think again, she had told me, she's like, it comes with that experience, but I really want you to like be dialed in. Because if you're like this, then you're just, you're constantly, are you really seeing the nitty gritty of the movement?
And the extra layer, because she did that to me on the second day too. And like the extra layer was, they look at it as like 1, 1, 1. So macro, micro, macro. Then she was saying, when you get good at that, I want you to try 1, 2, 1. So I would look at 2 people and correct 2 people and then look at the group and then go back. And then like over time, she's like, you'll get to like 3, 3, 3, like, and just, you can build your capacity, which to a degree, I think we already do that, but it's more of a systemized approach as a coach to build that skill, which I like. So it does give you some framework to think about coaching in that way. And I at the time I was a little confused with what she was saying. And then once we got clarity on it, I was like, oh, I like that. That's really good. Like,
well, and I think it was hard because I've been coaching such a long time. It's just innate, right? It's like you're watching a whole class and it's just innate to look.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was just, and she was literally calling me on my eyeballs. Like the second I'd hone in and then I'd know they're okay. And then I'd go to the next thing. And she was just like, you need to watch the entire rep.
Yeah. Well,
and
like, that's, okay. I mean, that's important too. Cause I think even just in a class, and I've been doing this a long time, there are members who go out and get their level 1, which I do encourage. I think people should. Or there are people who maybe have coached at other gyms, not just in this area where we live now, but that happened in California as well. And I think sometimes people come in and because they're singularly in that spot of their class, and they're maybe a coach or a former coach or whatever, their vantage point is very macro, and it's easy for them to be like, well, this person's not getting coached or that person's not getting coached. Right. But they're not the one coaching. And I love it because I'm like, you may not even understand the skills that we're talking about here or some of the stuff that they're really pressing you on or the development of the skills. Because even going back to like the 150 coaching hours that you have to keep up for your level 3, like that's a lot of hours to be doing, coaching. Right. But it's just a thing where I think people do need to understand that that's a huge skill to develop, and not only develop it 1-1-1, right? So like a class member is only looking in that 1-1-1 scenario that Lindsay and Dennis laid out. They don't have the skill of 2-3-2. You know, zooming out, looking at two people, zooming in, looking at three people, giving cues and corrections, zooming out, you know what I mean? Like, and really, really giving them quality cues. The other piece of that, the other side of the coin of like what they're impressing upon us is, hey, ignore this fault. And I think not just, I don't think I know that CrossFit coaches everywhere, it is easy to be on the internet or any class and sit back and point out flaws. Right. But if you know coaching, you know that you're going to selectively ignore, and they say that in it, certain things to approach and attack certain things, right? You're triaging what you want out of that athlete. And I think that gets overlooked when people have opinions of like, well, you're not a good coach, or you're not coaching everybody in the class, or like, you know, whatever their opinion is or evaluation, which does have merit and value, but step back for a second. So if you've ever coached, or you part-time or whatever, and you have opinions of your coach, like take a step back for a second and like look through the lens of like, well, what are they dealing with, and what are they actually looking for when they're coaching? Because you might be looking for hip extension and they're looking for timing of the dumbbells over the shoulders, and their hip extension might be good in their, let's say, push press, but their timing of the barbell off the shoulder is off. They're pushing sooner. So they need to delay and wait and reach hip extension that they actually are hitting before they start pressing.
Yeah.
You know, but you might be seeing that, oh, well, they're not hitting hip extensions. Like, are they not hitting hip extension, or are they not delaying their press until they reach hip extension, and it's a cord extremity violation?
Right.
And you don't know that because you're not coaching long enough, or understand, or can even have the eye to understand that.
Well, it's funny because it's like, you don't think that people have been coaching a long time don't see that. They see it, but that's not what they're actually focusing on in that moment, to your point. Right. So I think a lot of, like you said, internet people or whatever, they want to come out and they want to say, this is happening, that's happening. It's like, well, we know those things are happening, but that's not the focus of what we're trying to teach right now.
Or the history of that person. Like, what are they actually working on? What have you already had conversations with them about? What are you looking for? Because you're going to ignore things that are happening that are faults, because you're trying to fix the first fault.
Right.
And that needs to be understood from like everybody. You know, and I like think that needs to be said. And I think like our gym here is very respectful of that, but I have been in scenarios in our other gyms where it's like, hey man, you want to coach? Like, it gets me mad because I'm like, you don't know that person. You don't know where they're at in their athlete life cycle, in their development. You didn't meet them when they came through the doors on day one. You're not in there every single day with them at 5 a.m. working, or whatever time, 4 p.m. I just like saying 5 a.m. because, you know, those are the hard grinders. But you come in and then you're not watching their personal progression. I'm learning about you as a coach, about your life, about your stressors, your family, all of these things. And then you're going to go ahead and say like, well, you know, you didn't tell that person to get their knees out. Are you serious? So that ruffles my feathers. And
how dare you?
I know,
how dare you?
But they did cover that. They did cover like, hey, we need to understand where these athletes are, meet them where they're at. You need to ignore certain faults because you're working on these faults. Don't overwhelm the person. So I think my message of all of this is like, respect the coach in every class, because you don't know what they know. You also don't know what they're working on. You don't know what they're looking at, micro, macro. You don't know what that person that they're looking at is working on for them. You're just what Marissa's saying. And we used to say this a lot, or seagull coaching. Yeah. She loves engaging with the good old helicopter coach. I used to like the seagull coaching because Jason Kalipa would say that. And he would be like, yeah, you're seagull coaching. You just come in the room and shit on everybody. And it's like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Don't be that person, because you're just seagull coaching. It's cool. If that makes you happy, great. But hey, man, it's not helpful. You know, unless you want to engage in the process. And I love that. I think if you want to coach, cool. Talk to your gym owner, you know, figure it out, get in and get some practice. We're talking about practice, you know,
get those reps, those coaching reps.
Cool. So that was good. Day one. Day two. Well, also I'm gonna hate on some people. I'm gonna shame some people right now. day one, I did the .com workout by HWPO. That was a EMOM of box step ups and shuttle runs, which I actually had almost every single one of my individual athletes who are going to the CrossFit Games do, because it is good to get volume for the step ups, because the masters might do Chad as well. It's easy to do. You put out some boxes and you have a ton of people do it, and good possibility. But either way, I did the workout and thought it was really tough. And I only did 20 minutes because that's all I had time for. But I asked Lindsay if she wanted to do it, and she said no. I asked Heather. Heather was like, I got work to do. I'm going to try to do an athlete or athlete programming. I was like, okay, that's fair. I asked Dennis. He did his own workout. He actually did 30 kettlebell swings at 70 pounds on each arm, which looked pretty tough. Took him a little less time than my 20 minutes, but it was good. Him and I got a little bit of sweat in, and one girl did watch me the whole time. That could have.
Was that me?
No, you did also watch me the whole time, but some other girl did. I should have asked her to join in. I asked her why she didn't join in after when we got in our breakout groups, and she was like, I don't know. It just didn't look that great. So I was like, okay. I mean, it was tough. And then at the end, I asked Heather, I said, how many athletes did you get done? She's like, one. I was like, you could have did it with me. You could have did that workout.
I know.
But just want to throw that out there, put a little shame on people. It was fun though. I really enjoyed it. I think it was a good challenge. I don't know why I like Chad so much. I feel like it's because we trained for it last year. I think I have like I enjoy it.
I don't know. I think because I'm just short. I hate step ups.
Yeah.
I literally hate them.
Yeah.
So I do not find them enjoyable.
Yeah. It was also good pairing because we knew we were going to do heavy front squats as the workout for the level 2 seminar for that day. Yeah. So like doing step ups and shuttle runs, it was good metabolic primer. And if anybody knows me, like metabolic conditioning is lacking, endurance is lacking. So it's good for me to do that first as the primary and then do some strength stuff secondary. I mean, I'm not as strong as some people, but if we were to look at my imbalances, the other stuff would definitely highlight first. All right. So day 2, come in, we got some homework. We had to write out a whole thing. I wrote out a whole thing. I was all proud of my overhead squat. I did homework. I wrote it up. It looked all good. I was like, yes, I was pumped. I was like ready to go.
She did to you what she did to me.
Well, yeah. Heather and I got told we got to change our movements. And primarily it was because we coached them too well the first time. I was like, fuck.
Yeah. So all the feedback that we were getting on our specific movement, well, we didn't really have feedback on the actual movements, I guess, but yeah, they were like, you need something with more progression. So pick something else. Yeah. I mean, so I did push jerk. Yeah. And you did push press. Yeah. Yeah. So we switched it up. Had to learn it over lunch. Figure it out. Because you've never taught it before, ever. No. Because my feedback was to have, checks. Like this is step 1. This is step 2. Be very linear. Don't shoot from the hip and like do the higher level coaching. Like show the basics, show virtuosity, right? Do the common uncommonly well, which was basically my feedback of like, they want to see me do it. So I was like, okay. So like I did it, but then I got feedback on language, which I started getting frustrated with. You want to start there? We'll talk about that. Your language? Yeah, because were you saying a lot? No. So I prepared. Okay. Well, let's talk about the morning. The morning starts. We got told we had to pick new ones. Our groups go. I had to go in the afternoon because I had to have a new one. So I guess that doesn't really matter. And then we had more lectures. And we could cover some of those ones. I was in the afternoon because everyone had anxiety and wanted to go first. So I was like in the last of the last to go. We can cover the key points from the lectures after. But so anyway, so switch it up. So I go on and get the level 2 manual to look at like what do they actually say, the words, the verbiage of the progression and how to coach it in order. And I spent my lunch like memorizing it specifically the way they say it. And it's dip, drive, punch, right? And it talks about hip extension in. Wait, back it up. Yeah. It does say dip in there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, go. We pulled up the manual because we got in an argument. So anyways, I had a good attitude though. So I was annoyed because it's like anything. You do your homework, you do it, you're like A+, and like you're hitting the points exactly the way it is in the workbook, right? And the teacher then tells you like, no, it's going to be this way. And you're like, wait, hold on.
a second though, because the book says specifically this, and I legit was saying it word for word, which she agreed with because we pulled out the level 2 manual. She's like, oh, it does say that. And I was like, yeah, so I'm just saying what they're saying because I was told yesterday that I should, just do it specifically, exactly, checklist in order and show my skill and my ability to do that.
Yeah.
And I was doing that. And so then I got frustrated because I was doing what they asked.
Well, I think this is, and we kind of talked about this because the girl in our group who had push jerk, when Lindsay was in our group on day 1, she kept saying when she was teaching it, she kept saying dip, drive, dip, or whatever. And she kept telling her, you're not allowed to use the word dip. When you teach the push jerk, you have to just say jump, because when you jump,
so here we go.
Right? When you say jump,
we're gonna get on this one
when
too.
You say jump, you innately dip and drive, right? Yep. And so she kept saying, okay, when you come and teach that on Sunday, the second day, you're not allowed to say that word at all. So then Todd gets this same movement where it specifically says dip in the L2 manual when you're teaching it through a progression. So yeah. Anyways.
So, I mean, and I understand what they're getting at, right?
Yeah.
They're challenging you to use something different. So then I had a hard time changing because I already like memorized it. And I was like, oh, I can't like change my words. Like I literally was like, okay, you want me to say jump? Cause that was the next piece. She's like, say jump instead of dip and drive. I was like, cool. Okay. I freaking go to demo it and I go dip drive. And I was like, I can't say it. Like, I can't say jump. I was like, okay, fine. And then, so I was like, let me do it again. So I do it again. And I
forget what I just said.
Yeah, forget. Let me try again. So I finally get it and saying jump. And I was like, but I was literally having like a meltdown of like, I can't change my words now. I like memorized it too good. I was like, oh, okay. So I was getting frustrated with that with myself. And then also getting frustrated with like misunderstanding of like, and the compounding of like, cause the way I am, I'm like, what the book says so, and that's how I am with a lot of things. Like, I'm like, yeah, I get what you're saying, but that says that, and that's what that is. Like, there's no room for conversation.
So I think that's and I think that's the frustration I feel. I felt it a little bit in the first time for me personally. And then the second time I took it, I felt it more so with the other people in the group, but it's like, they're trying to, as participants, like in coaches, they're trying to do what they're asking you to do. But they get so like nervous or caught up because they're trying to do it exactly perfect to the verbiage and the words that CrossFit's putting. But then they're also not fully telling you, like they're telling you jump, but it says dip drive. Yeah. And so there's just a little bit of nuance in there. Yeah. So I think it confuses the people of like, well, what do you want us to actually say? Do you want us like, and I think maybe that could be a place where I would say there could be a little bit of improvement of
feedback. Yeah, it's good. And they wanted feedback, they asked for it at the end. So like, like I was like, okay, I'm gonna say jump. So then I was like saying jump and we got through that. And then the other hiccup arises of like, Lynn's like, well, just simplify it. Cause so much and you're like adding a lot of things and I agree, I do add a lot of stuff. So I was like, okay, you're right, I do. But in this scenario, I was actually not. And I was like, okay, I get what you're saying, but she's like, well, tell them to move their knees back before they open their hips. And I was like, well, jumping does that. Like, and you said, make it simple. So why don't I just say jump? But to her credit, she was trying to challenge me to use a different cue. And I get that, but I'm also like, well, you just told me to keep it simple. And the most simple thing you could do is jump in the air.
Right.
I don't know how, like I told her, I was like, you tell me what's more simple than jumping. Like, cause I'm confused right now.
Oh, so she didn't want you to say jumping.
No, she did. And then I said jumping and I was doing that. And then there was a thing of like, I was overcomplicating it, which I was a little bit. Cause I was like, cause jumping kind of wasn't working. So I was like, okay, squeeze your butt as you're going to jump and squeeze your butt. Like I was trying to get people to extend before they, dipped under or punched the bar. And well, I won't even get in a disagreement. I'll just put a link in our thing about the push jerk and CrossFit. I just don't agree with the way they coach it. I think the Olympic lifting way is better. But anyways, we won't get into that. So we're just going back and forth. And I understand like keeping it simple and everything else and like looking for the cues. I think like to your point, there probably needs to be a little bit more conversation. Like, okay, you kept it simple. It's looking good. Here's how we're going to layer on another thing. because it's like she wanted me to keep it simple, but then she was adding something. I'm like, well, one is more simple than two. Like, you know what I mean? So where are we going with this? So I did get frustrated with that, and I was kind of rude about it because I just don't like that. I'm like, just tell me a different way.
Feel like saying dip and saying jump is
Yeah, but you have to dip to jump.
I know, but what I'm saying is like in the
I mean, you don't
context of
have
keeping
to,
it
but-
simple, saying dip jump or dip drive
Yeah.
or just jump.
Right.
I think it's all simple and will all potentially work. And
Yeah.
so it's like to get in the weeds
she did say
about
that. She did say that. She's like, look, all of these ways do work, and you did elicit the response we're looking for.
Yeah.
So it's more of a challenge of like, and that's when I was like, okay, like now I know what you're saying. And I appreciate that, like, you cleared that up, because it's like, it's a more of a challenge of building a bigger toolbox. And to your point, like earlier, of because people are stressed and they feel like nervous, because everyone felt nervous. No one wants to teach in front of these level 4s and their peers who are also coaches at other CrossFit gyms. And in this scenario, other CrossFit gyms in the area, because they don't want to be like, oh man, they don't want to be told, like, someone saying behind their back that they suck as a coach, right? Like, that's the fear, I think. Like, it's your peer review. You don't want that, a negative peer review, obviously. And it's like, well, that's really not the space for it. Like, you were all trying to learn here. So like, I don't think anyone's like, man, that person really sucks and they shouldn't have their level 2. Like, that would be very mean if someone thought that. And if you did think that, maybe you should have a conversation with that person and be like, hey, I was at the level 2 and I think you got some work to do. Can I help you?
Yeah.
So that's a better way. But anyways, I don't think anyone really was thinking that, but it does create that nervousness. And I could see how that environment itself would lend to that thought process.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that's coming from. So then when people get all nervous, they break down and they don't, perform their good coaching the way that they would like to represent themselves as coaches. But ultimately, I think that's a good thing, having a little bit of like,
yeah.
So it was good.
Like, it goes back to your like, at the beginning when you were saying you didn't really have a lot of people, like when you took it the first time, you're like, oh, it's great because you don't have people really correcting you or watching you or like giving you feedback. So
it's a 2-day opportunity to have someone rip into you.
Yeah. And I think that that's part of their job. Part of their job is to give feedback, even for the people who have been doing it for a really long time. So it could feel like they're getting nitty gritty and in the weeds and, whatever. But I think that's really their job to not just be like, you're great, you're the best. Even though maybe you wanted to hear that, but I don't know.
Like a little bit, but also like, I want to be better.
Yeah.
Like, you're never going to be the best. Even people who are the best. Like, I'm sure Katie Ledecky, who just put this smash on people in the 1600 meter, 1500 meter.
Yeah.
Beat people by what, 20 seconds or something.
Yeah.
I'm sure she wants to beat them by a minute. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can always be better. So anyways, that was good. Like, I had a lot of fun with that. As far as like the talks and stuff, like, I think there were a couple talks. I mean, the programming talk was really interesting. It was way more developed than it was 10 years ago. There were a lot of things I was like, oh, thank goodness, that they're adding this in. Key things of like really explaining that your program design can be bad, even if you are following, constantly varied functional movement executed at high intensity, and you're doing couplets, triplets, and chippers, and the way that you're doing them can be very bad. You could have people doing too much intensity too often. I did enjoy their, what we say, modifications. I did enjoy their scaling. The thing that stood out to me the most that was never said before, when I took, and it might have been said at other level 2s, but 10 years ago when I took the level 2 for the first time, it was not said about this. And I don't even think it was said really when we took it in 2019, was when you scale something, it is important to have variation of that scaling. So and he made a really good point about it. And I know it's the classic joke of like, someone comes in and has pull-ups today and, Susie gets, I don't know why we say Susie. Why does that happen? Or Susie or Sally, maybe because it comes off the tongue. Frank, we're gonna go with Frank. Frank comes in today and he's doing pull-ups and he's got to use the green band, and just here's your green band. And we're doing pull-ups, and that happens more often than I would like as a coach. And people get in that routine and it's like, well, pull-ups and doing the green band, but variation of that movement, right? A bent over row, not using a green band, using a horizontal row or an inverted row, or doing a chin up grip or a mixed grip pull up, rather than an overhand with a green band, doing band down by the feet instead of band from the pull bar. What else? Rope sled pulls, where you're bent over like a bent over row, but pulling this way over your head. There's a lot of different variations you could do for a pull up where you don't always have to give someone a green band, and it's going to give them a unique or novel stimulus to that and give them better growth and development, because what their body's going to do is try to solve this problem. And hopefully through that, you get enough neuro adaptation that you're going to learn how to do a pull up through that process. If you have strength and, we're talking about the pull up, unfortunately, there's truth to body weight to power ratio, as you lose body mass. Speaking of fat mass in this scenario, you get lean enough and strong enough, it's pretty easy to do a pull up because you're at that right power to weight ratio for you. And everybody has that set point. And it's kind of a dirty conversation because people don't like to talk about those things, but that is the truth of the nature of it. And you'll build that up over time. But having that variation of movement, quote unquote, scaling, I love that they hit that, and he hit it out of the park, man.
Yeah.
He went over it a lot.
Yeah.
Really drilled it, because I am sick and tired of pull-ups, ring rows, always, or green band, and that never changes, right?
Well, and I think there's like two sides of this. One, it doesn't, the coach is never challenging themselves in learning other scales and applying it to workouts, right? Like, and also I think the athlete, like, they're just like, I mean, maybe they get bored, but sometimes they just get comfortable. They're just like, I just want to do the green band and I have to do that. And I have to. And so it's like, you're also challenging them to get out of their comfort zone, do something that maybe makes you, that you don't really like that scale. They just like want to do, I mean, I'm not going to say names, but a couple people in our gym in California, right, where they're just like, you had to do the opposite, where it was just like, nope, you don't get that green band today. You get to do this one. And they're like, no, I'm doing that. And then literally I'd see out of the corner of my eye, like, they're setting it up. And I'm like, no, you're not doing that band today.
Well, it's because people miss the benefit of variation, right?
Yeah.
Yet they want their workouts varied every day. Can't do the same thing. Like, I'm like, come on. Can't do the same Metcon every week on Tuesday. That would be crazy talk. Although it would probably be beneficial for a lot of people. But that's what's crazy too, is like, you're always using the green band, but then you want your workouts to be different. Hold on a second.
Right.
So it is good that they talked about that variation. Now, not saying that is the best way to get a pull up if we're talking about that, but like, it is good to have variation.
Well, I think that when you're not having variation as well, you're not really progressing them anywhere. Like, they're just doing the movement and they just get comfortable in doing it. I'm like, well, no, I want to get to a point where, like, you, Frank, can do a pull up, right? And so it's like, if we're always doing it this one way, I shouldn't want to abuse
Sally anymore,
right? If you're only doing it this one way, well, you're just doing it to get like the stimulus.
No, you're just getting to move around,
just to move your body.
Right.
Like, you're not really like,
which there's benefit and value
to
there.
Get you to do a pull up, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's progression and growth, which they covered over, and there's also, like, they talked about meeting people where they're at, which we always talk about and see, but it's progression and fitness first, and growing you in these things rather than just like pacifying you to make you feel good so you keep coming to the gym, because that's not going to work, and they talked about that, which is also good. That I am very happy they covered this, because I was sitting there just like, finally, CrossFit is acknowledging what Greg has said years and years ago about individualized training and specific training. Now, Greg's approach was through comments of, if you're afraid of seeing it come out of the hopper, you better be practicing that, right? That's specific training to something that you are bad at, your weakness. You wouldn't want to see a 5K run come out of the hopper. If you didn't want to see that come out of the hopper, what should you be doing? Running endurance training, specific training to elicit specific adaptation to cover the gap of what you're bad at. You don't want to see 3RM back squat, you better be strength training, and Greg said that. They never really have talked about that at the level 1, level 2s that I've been at. Again, maybe they have other people depending on the flow master, but 2024, this weekend, they covered it, and he covered it very well of, hey, we know through CrossFit. You do CrossFit for a year. If you do it well with virtuosity and you can RX most of the things and you don't have huge hurdles to overcome health wise or anything of that nature where you're like, you come in, maybe you're generally fit and you want to try this CrossFit thing and you learn stuff and you grow and you build. You stagnate after a year and you'll get better, slowly, but you do plateau. And this idea that CrossFit, because the constant variedness of it, you'll never plateau and you'll always get PRs. Like that was through the culture and that was in the training, level 1. They talked about that. Like if you keep it varied, you're going to always get better. Muscle confusion. And now they're like, they know that that's not true, but they didn't know at the time. So I give them grace, but he covered it. Like you might need to have different ways of approaching someone's training, right? So someone comes in to your class and is like, hey coach, I'm not getting much better. They still need the GPP. They still need that 60 minutes, but is there a way, what they call homework or what we do at our gym, we call it hybrid. We give you a coach who changes the training model for you, uses the base, uses class, uses the warm up, the skill and the class itself, and then builds around that or changes the Metcon to suit, let's say you're learning toes to bar, because that's the thing that will come out of the hopper that you don't want it to come out of the hopper. We're going to fix that problem. And then if there's toes to bar in the workout, obviously you wouldn't do toes to bar because you're limiting in that movement and you're going to build it. So the coach might change the Metcon to, let's say, V-ups or sit-ups, right? That is a way in a real, there's more to it than that we do at hybrid, but that's a brief idea of how we do that. And that is within the model of what they talked about over the weekend. I was fucking over the moon about it because that is super helpful for coaches to understand that, look, telling somebody who's been coming for a year to come to more classes and do more volume is not the answer.
Right.
And he covered it. He goes, more volume is not the answer. It might be. Have you evaluated it for the person? It might be the answer, but most people it's not. Most people it's you take the specific adaptation approach, the SAID principle, and apply that to the thing that they need to get better at for a while. And then when they're good at that, you integrate it back in and, and they use the word homework, which I would say is like the same thing. As a coach, they can hire you to do homework or personal training. They don't talk about a hybrid method because I don't think they know about that. I haven't pitched it to them. Other coaches who do that style of training don't pitch it to them. But yeah, it was cool. I really enjoyed that. I'm glad they talked about it because I think a lot of people think if you continue to hammer your head against the wall with CrossFit, you're going to get these PRs and everything else. And it's like, you need it for GPP, your general physical preparedness. You need it as your base, but you need to start tweaking and playing and learning and growing about your fitness and having a coach who is knowledgeable enough to do that. That was the other thing they hit home is like, if you don't know how to do this, probably don't do it for that person because they're already lost at sea. Right.
Well, and I think one of the things they also had said, because we did on Sunday, like Lindsay ran us through a 60-minute class and all we did was a workout, was a Metcon, which was a 10, 12. Well, okay. Well, I'm just saying as far as our workout was just 10 to 13 minutes. Right. And there was a lot that went in there. There's a lot of coaching that went in there and she did a phenomenal job. Yeah. She did a phenomenal job. But my point is that I'm trying to get is that making this as homework. Like I think a lot of gyms just want to be like, okay, we're just going to put more in the class and we're going to do all these things and all these extra credits and and now all of a sudden you're not really like coaching as much anymore and you're just like giving them all this stuff and it doesn't really apply to necessarily everyone. So I liked that it was like, okay, the GPP doesn't need more, most like generally, like they just need to keep doing their 60 minutes of maybe just a strength piece, maybe just a mixed modal piece, whatever. And then giving them specific people like,
or like an opportunity to rest. I think the 60-minute, we joked about this. The 60-minute class is an arbitrary thing that we created as a construct within our society, where I would argue that most human beings need to physically train, whatever that is, whether that's CrossFit or cycling or running or whatever. When you look at time domains of experience level and adaptations, most of us need to be doing 2 hours of exercise a day if you want proficiency and true quality adaptations. And I think that's hard for people to hear. But when you look at endurance running, the sweet spot of like getting more enduring is about 90 minutes of continual running per session. So with a warm up, cool down, getting ready, you're about 2 hours of endurance running. Cycling, you might as well just triple that. You know what I mean? And I know people get away with it recreationally. People do their long training day one time a week. And there's all these condensed training models now of running out there. We're like, get your running done in an hour. And it's like, well, it doesn't really work like that. Like it doesn't work like that. But because of life and constraints of life in our world and how we view things, that's how it's going to have to work. So, I mean, here we do give a lot of like extra credit. We try to structure things, but realistically, like Heather's right. And there's some things I'm kind of like, I want to pull away from, I think, a little bit and give people less to give them more. But then I go back and I'm like, people actually need more though. So how do we, I don't know, Marissa and I played with doing like a 90-minute class instead of a 60-minute class to get more in with more rest and more explanation and more coaching. But I don't know, we'll see. But it is tough, right? And they went over that. And to argue your point though, like this muscle up skill work that we did was like a part A. So we did do a warm up, and then their specific warm up was muscle up skill progressions and muscle up turnovers, which was 15-ish minutes, 15, 20 minutes. So I would say that was part A. There was a little bit of rest, and then part B was the conditioning. So for them to argue that you don't need more, it's like, well, we did a whole warm up. We did a part A and a part B. So poo-pooing on gyms that do like a strength and the Metcon. I think they're poo-pooing on the gyms that do strength and the Metcon because that's so classic, where people do ignore gymnastics. And we talked about that at the end, which was another thing I really enjoyed from the weekend was the muscle up stuff. They had 10 strict ring muscle ups. Yeah. There was 11 of us at the level 2. Myself and somebody else did the workout RX. So out of 11 of us, 2 of us did it RX. So 10% of participants were able to do RX. A question I asked at the end was like, okay, so like you guys just watched us all do that, and you had 2 of us do that RX.
It's actually 20%, but go
on. Oh, sorry, 20%. Well, no, because it's 11.
Well, okay.
It's 15, whatever. Okay, sorry. It doesn't matter.
Go on.
2 people out of 11 did it RX. No one else did.
Yeah.
Okay. I asked, well, when you're standing in the gym as a CrossFit coach and you see that happen, do you evaluate the program and change the programming, or do you dive in and teach the muscle up, And I appreciated Dennis's answer. It was like, well, it comes from the top. If you're enthusiastic about it, you have the knowledge to do it, and you want to coach it and teach it, that's where it comes from. But you have to be teaching it well. You have to have the knowledge, you have to have the desire, and you have to have the consistency to want to teach that movement. But the default is what he said, watered down CrossFit, which I'm on the fence about. I don't know. Should you be doing CrossFit then if you're going to water it down because you don't want to level yourself up as a coach and ask more of yourself and the members of your gym to give them those skills and development? So it was a good conversation that I think needs to be had more in CrossFit gyms with the owners, the coaches, and then be like, well, can we even teach this? Like, who of us can do it? Like, who of us will volunteer as tribute, right? Yeah. But that's the thing is like, that's a classic workout. 10 strict ring muscle ups, 50 shoulder overhead, and 100 calories on a rower. Like, and the load was 115.75. Like, obviously, yeah, everyone's going to stand there and be like, oh, and the story I told Heather, the story of CJ's mom, Linnell, in 2015 or 2016, whatever year that was, where they had 7 ring muscle ups to start the workout. She was telling her daughter, CJ, where do I send my letter? This is so inconvenient for me that it starts with ring muscle ups. I want to complain. And it's like pretty funny that happened. But I mean, that's how members feel, right? Yeah. If you put up on the whiteboard or whatever, 10 strict ring muscle ups.
But it's like, to your point, like going from the top down, right? It's like, if you have the knowledge of the ring muscle up, you can teach the ring muscle up, you can teach progressions of the ring muscle up, you can get people excited about it, right? Like you can get people engaged. Because even in the seminar this weekend, it was like, I felt like everybody was having a good time. All of her progressions that she was doing was
Lindsay did a great job.
Yeah, she was phenomenal. And it's like, I think people worry about like programming ring muscle ups because they're like, well, no.
Dennis's demo was beautiful.
Yeah. But they're like, nobody's going to come to those days. And I think that it could be potentially true, but it's because you're not I don't want to like make it absolute, but potentially like you don't have enough knowledge to really like get after it and give these people and make it fun for them. And not even just the ring muscle, but they talk a lot about too, like having so much knowledge about what you're teaching that all you have to worry about is coaching.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing with like teaching things that are harder to teach.
Why also,
because then you can make it fun. You can really make that session
yeah,
get a lot out of it for those people, as opposed to just like being afraid to just go through the motions and people aren't going to enjoy it. And
yeah, or just understand that like if you know enough, it's helping people find the value in it, right? Because a lot of people look at a strict ring muscle up and be like, "Pruh," or like a strict pull up, and it's like, you know how much value there is. And I said this in front of everybody. Like, well, two things. The first thing I said in front of everybody is like, it is by definition of CrossFit, you're moving a large load a long distance quickly. That is the longest distance you can move your body from a hang overhead to a support with your arms. It's the largest distance of a pulling movement that you could do, pulling and pressing, arguably. So there's value there. There's value through your life, getting out of a pool, pulling yourself up onto a tree, playing with your kids. There's so much that translates. The hollow body position hold, this rigidity, the stability that it takes, the neuromuscular coordination, the mechanical tension. There's so much there. And it's a strength movement as well. When we talk about strength, it requires a lot of strength if that's your goal. So it's one of those things where like I find a lot of value in it. We don't really coach it as much as I would like to, because we still want to just master the pull up and then move from there. But you know, something to think about, something to think about really deeply. And I think there's, you know, obviously the educational piece, desire, and it comes from the top down and just morphing the gym out the way that you want it to be through your coaches and your ownership. And it was good that we had all of those conversations. Like it was, I really enjoyed the level 2 this time because of some of the little pieces that I think maybe went unheard because of the experience of some of the coaches. But I think it needed to be said of like, hey, look, you got to fix these things. And like, you know, there are people that need more, they need more coaching, like going through the motions and just doing the class and not talking about homework and not meeting them where they're at and not exposing them to quality movement demos, exposing them to cues and corrections, and then teaching them the why of, well, this is a large load moving a long distance quickly that's going to translate to strength development, coordination to help you progress your physical state. That's the why. Why am I doing this? To progress your physical state. You know, most of the time that's the answer. Then specifically why? Why is a thruster good for me? Why is sled pushing good for me, right? If you have that knowledge to explain those things in your program and in your coaching and why you're doing them, you're going to do what they're saying, get people enthused and enjoy it. And that was a huge takeaway for me of like, and I do that a lot here in our gym and with my athletes, but and like with this podcast, like I really want to get people enthused about moving their body for specificity and specific reasons to improve their state and enhance their metabolic conditioning, strength development, coordination, you know, and obviously endurance too. But it was good. I think that's important. I'm glad they hit that home. It was beautiful. And if you were in the seminar, I hope you had your ears up.
Yeah, it was really great.
Cool. Anything else? Anything notable? It was a good time. Thank you, Lindsay and Dennis. You guys did great. I think it's Lindsay's last seminar.
I heard it was both of their last seminars.
Yeah, I think it is.
Because they've been doing it since 2008, seminar staff, which is really cool.
Yeah, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But
I thought you said that they both told you that at the end of the weekend separately.
Yeah, I think Lindsay for sure. Dennis mentioned something about it. I just, you know, you never know. They might be like, I'm trying to get out. I'm not trying to get out. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
But they killed it. I don't think it should be their last if it is.
Yeah.
Get some more motivation.
Yeah, it was great. So
it's hard. What they do is
the
very
moral
hard.
of the story is to have an open mind, because you were nervous that you weren't going to get any takeaways and it was going to be boring and blah blah blah.
That was the second time.
I think.
The third time.
I think you just had like a little bit of like a mindset from like what happened in 2019, and I think that there was a lot of really great stuff that happened this weekend and learning. So I thought that was cool.
Oh, I was open from the get go. I was smiling.
Okay, well, not the night before, but You were ready to go by Saturday.
Yeah, but the
morning
morning I told you, I was like, all right, I'm going to change my attitude. This was it. This is true.
Okay.
This, you know what? This is good. This is a good learning lesson. I was very like negative about it. Yes, the night before. And in the morning I said, hey, I'm going to have a good attitude, have the best time. And then Saturday you were like in a bad mood. I was like, look at how the roles reverse. So it's, you know, just shift your mind. It's good. It's all good. It was great. I appreciate you challenging me to look at it more positively and like change my mindset and it was helpful. It's like today, I didn't want to do those 2 burpees with 8 seconds left, but I did because you're like, you could do the 2, and I did the 2.
Well, because I knew you got off the rower and you were just going to stand there. Like, I just knew it.
Yeah.
And I was like, you got 2, and then you did it.
I did it. Yeah. I appreciate you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was good. All right. Thanks for listening to our level 2 recap. Hope you guys learned some stuff. If you're a coach, hope you learned something. If you're a member and you get coached by us, I don't know, start a conversation with us. I wonder how many people watch these that are members that have questions. If you have questions, come talk to me. I'll write them down. Maybe we'll address them on the show. But it'd be good. Remember to like and subscribe. And we'll see you guys next week with the full team. We just wanted to keep it Heather and I so we could talk about our experience and be selfish and not let them chime in.
Well, you know, sometimes it'd be like that.
It's okay. Happy birthday, Harley, again for the 3rd or 4th time. Don't forget, send them some love.
Yep.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.